I'll get it back to you though.
Let me go check the other room.
Okay. Oh, that'd
If
be
I don't
heaven.
come back in here, that means it was there and she was in some random probably from orientation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Of course. Of course. I mean, I'm talking about when kids explode. Of course, hey, give me I don't care. That's fine. My message is when you look at the history of Nebraska Teacher of the Year, no Teacher of the Year has fought for the issues that I'm talking about. They're just not talking about them. They're just because when you look at history of school here, there's no diversity. So they're not talking about kids of color. They're not talking about DEI work. They're not talking about they're just not. Of course, DSL teachers, they're not talking about language acquisition. They're not talking about kids from different countries. They're not talking about any of that. So my message is to any different, any teacher, and some people like it and some people don't, but that's with everything, right? So yeah. No, but I'm not going to say it. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Unleash. Ugh. That's okay. Oh, okay. That's okay. They can take what I do and definitely transfer it into their teacher ed classes. Because I'm going to tell them this, like, regardless, no, no, there's going to be well learners. There's going to be good classrooms, regardless of what certification is. What are you talking about with my message that they did here? That's their life. I can't change what I think because they don't get to live my life and I'm telling them they want to. Oh, when I was getting ready to become a COE, I did my research on that. There are some counties a couple years ago, the year I came, it went from 0 English language learners to 100. So I got some hundred kids that need services. And this is the thing. The counties, that was a rural county. That's not an urban or suburban county. These families and these communities are starting to sprawl out into suburban and rural areas. I'm seeing places like Cold Bridge and Broken Bow and Imperial, Chase County, Nebraska, need full-time ELL teachers. They need that because the population's today and the kids today. So, okay.
Jason, do you want to come on up? Okay, good afternoon. I will use my teacher voice and also sharing the mic with our honored guest today. I'm going to stay kind of close to him. Good afternoon and welcome to everybody who's here at Akingay and to those of you who are watching on our live stream. I'm Chandra Diaz. I'm the Associate Dean for the College of Education. Unfortunately, the Dean, Dean Reed, is unable to be here with us, but we do have some words that he would like to share with you in the video that we will play now.
Hello, I am glad you are here for this wonderful event. Most of you probably know me, but for those that don't know me, my name is Mark Reed. I'm the Dean of the College of Education here at UNK. And I'm so glad you are here to hear the presentation by Lee Perez, who is the 2022 Nebraska Teacher of the Year. What a great honor to have him here on our campus. I'm so sorry I can't be here in person. I'm actually jealous of those of you who are seeing this welcome video because you're going to have a chance to hear a very informed and I'm sure a presentation full of wisdom from the Teacher of the Year. I want to thank Dr. Tony Hill and Dr. Shannon Diaz for inviting me to do this welcome and also for preparing and facilitating this event for all of us today. I wanted to say a couple of things before we get on with the star of our show. I think it is so important that we celebrate teachers as role models. And I'm so glad to see Mr. Perez here and see that he received this award, because he is, by definition, a role model for what a teacher ought to be. And he's been recognized with this Teacher of the Year award, and I think that is so important for so many reasons. And one of the reasons is that we are short of teachers. We all know that we have got a crisis in terms of the number of teachers in our classroom, and certainly that is true in rural Nebraska, and certainly in certain disciplines, we are hurting for teachers.
Yes, we are.
So when we can put people forward like Mr. Perez with his great story, with his great passion, and his great advocacy for various parts of education, I think we've got a chance to raise the next generation of teachers that will be so important for our state and our region and our country. And I also agree with one of the points that Mr. Perez is likely to make today, is that we need teachers that fit the demographics of the students we are teaching. That's long been a problem.
My guy right there.
We can produce teachers that are female, that are white, and many times the students that they are teaching don't fit those demographics. And we all know, I think there's lots of literature out there that says that, and once again, it refers back to the role models I talked about earlier, that we need role models in our K through 12 classroom that can be role models for those students from various backgrounds. I want to thank Mr. Perez for coming today and sharing his wisdom with us and being a passionate advocate for so many important aspects of what needs to happen in the teaching profession today and in the future.
Thank you, Dean Reed, for your generous words. I would like to thank the following sponsors of today's event. And after each sponsor's name is read, if you can, just give 2 claps. Okay, here we go. College of Education, Dean's Office. Counseling, School Psychology and Family Science. Teacher Education. UNK Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Women's Gender and Ethnic Studies. And our Chief Diversity Officer. Okay, thank you. I'd like to also give a special shout out to Dr. Hill, who I know is in the back, who's still doing her duties of doing the heavy lift of organizing, truly organizing this event. So we can give her a round of applause. Thank you, Dr. Hill. Yes, thank you, thank you. You are in for a real treat today, and it's going to get hot in here because Mr. Lee Perez is going to bring the fire. When he speaks, you will feel and you will see his passion. The road for Mr. Perez is becoming the Nebraska Teacher of the Year could be viewed as typical. Okay, now culturally we kind of roast, so this is like serious, but I'm also going to kind of roast him in this process. Okay, Mr. Perez was the student in high school who came to school and put his hood up and didn't want to be seen or bothered. He then took that same energy and randomly filled in the bubbles on his ACT. He was really trying his hardest to not do well in school, but he still had teachers who saw him and who believed in him, who also helped him cross the finish line. His brothers also believed in him and encouraged him to attend Mid-Plains Community College in North Platte. There, he also tried his best to fail, but one counselor created that pivotal moment that changed his academic trajectory, that led him to an early career in social science education. But one of the best decisions he did make was marrying Mariana Cruz, who is a UNK grad. So there we go. And she encouraged him to get his ESL endorsement. Now Mr. Perez gets to engage and inspire and elevate students from around the world who have come to Nebraska as immigrants and refugees. Mr. Lee Perez, we are honored to have you as our guest on our campus. If everyone can put your hands together and welcome Mr. Perez.
All right, thank you for having me. So the story was kind of read, but if you can kind of look at those images, that kind of encompasses my life in high school. I was arrested for drunk driving. I actually spent some time in jail. It was only 3 days. When you're in jail, you have a lot of time to think. There's only so much you can read, trust me. This is what I did when I came to class every day. And my transcripts and grade reports were full of these. So the reason why I tell this story is because there were several teachers in my life that didn't really give up on me. I mean, they could have wrote me off as a loser. They could have said, you know, this Perez guy is going to go nowhere, but they didn't do that. As a matter of fact, when I won Nebraska Teacher of the Year, one of those amazing educators, Coach Stan Moore, Mr. Moore, who was my math and basketball coach at North Platte High School, I was so busy, but I remember calling him that Sunday and saying, Coach, I'm so sorry I meant to get to you, and he just said, I am very proud of you. But he was one of those teachers and coaches that still to this day, I consider him a teacher. He will always be my teacher. He will always be my basketball coach, even 22 years after I played for him or was in his math classroom. Yes, when I went in and took my ACT, I went in and I just filled in bubbles. A, B, C. I think I was making like, you could think of it like the people that make balloons. I was just trying to make animals. Like I didn't care about school. I had no interest in education whatsoever. So the fact that I stand before you now as State Teacher of the Year is, if that's not the literal definition of irony, I don't know what is. But think of my story as the Robert Downey Jr. of education, okay? Seriously, okay? And by the way, he's Iron Man, he's irreplaceable. But yeah, literally rock bottom to now I go around to talk about why teaching is one of the greatest professions in the world. Literally 22 years ago, standing up here, well, I probably wouldn't have showed up. I probably would have been drunk somewhere. But the thing is that's my story. But the rationale behind that story is great teachers that built positive relationships well beyond the classroom, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So these are my babies right here. These are my English language learners when I won Nebraska Teacher of the Year. They were super confused that day. They had no idea what was going on, so I just said, just smile and look your best, and we'll go from there. But those are my why. So here's a little bit of my background. I was born in North Platte, Nebraska on January 19th, 1982. Who's been to North Platte? I feel sorry for you. I'm kidding. Literally, get your gas, get your runs in, go to Denver. I'm kidding. So teaching experience, I have 15 years. I taught for 12 years, 7th grade World Studies on the English side of the dual language program for Mars Magnet Middle School in South Omaha. And then I went and got my ESL endorsement, and I spent the last 3 years teaching English as a second language, grades 5 through 8, at Alice Buffett Magnet Middle School in Northwest Omaha. Yes, that is Warren Buffett's aunt. No, I do not have any money from Warren, so please do not ask. I get asked that question all the time. It's a fabulous school. It's a legacy school. I just want to thank my principal, Mr. Clark Kazmierek, and the school, because like I said, I wasn't at Buffett very long, and I was able to secure Nebraska Teacher of the Year. So they have been very, very influential in supporting me and empowering me to do that. I hold 2 teaching endorsements, 7 through 12 social sciences, PK-12 English as a second language. In addition to my coaching duties, I do coach cross country and track and field. I am a proud member of the National Education Association, the Nebraska State Education Association, and the Omaha Education Association, so I'm very involved with union committees and things like that. As you know, public education is under attack right now, and I always tell education majors and student teachers and everybody I give speeches to that as much as you want to be apolitical or not into politics, education is very political, from funding to salary to benefits to everything. Everything is driven by politics. So yes, I am very involved with union work and advocating for public schools on a daily basis. I'm also the first person in my family to graduate from college, breaking several generational curses. And funny story, I was supposed to start my master's degree this year, but then Teacher of the Year happened, so that got put on hold. So I'm halfway done with my master's degree at Concordia University in teaching English to speakers of other languages, also known as TESOL. When I get that, I will be the first in my family to have received a master's degree. So very, very proud of that. Thank you very much. All right, so this is my why. These are my babies right here. This is what I show up for every day. The diversity in this, both cultural and linguistic diversity in this picture is awesome. This is El Salvador, this is Tajikistan, this is Afghanistan, this is Costa Rica. That is a bobcat. Okay, languages, bilingual, trilingual, bilingual, 8 languages. You heard that. Manor on the ground, 8 languages. She wants to learn Spanish, which would make 9. which is awesome. I said bueno. So, you know a kid's English is getting better when they can understand and dish out sarcasm. So, one day I'm telling a story, and she raises her hand, and I say, yes, Menor, can I help you? She goes, Mr. Perez, can you just email me the rest of this story? I said, the metaphorical mic, I'm going to drop it for you, because I didn't even have a comeback for that. So, yes, she's a very bright kid. I mean, 8 languages, wow. She's going to be probably President of the United States someday. Middle picture, this is me getting my face shoved into tres leches cake on my 37th birthday. Who's ever had tres leches cake? Oh, wow, that's the best cake in the world. They shoved my face in it, some got in my mouth, and I was like, you guys couldn't even cut me a piece before you did that. So I went viral that day. That was pretty cool. But yeah, they brought me in cake, and we celebrated my birthday, and they told me how old I was. So that's awesome. So right here, these are my kiddos at Lawrence and Gardens. So this is my why. I know all of you are seeing the toxic negativity about the teaching profession. So there's always 2 sides to a story. So this is my side. So whenever I'm having a bad day, I look at these pictures, and I remember the rationale and the why. I'm a teacher. So empowerment. This is actually a quote I put in my Nebraska Teacher of the Year application because they asked me what my message would be and what good teaching looks like to me. And I said, good teaching isn't always about effective lesson planning, data, assessments, or observations with your administrators. It is about empowering our students to strive to be the best versions of themselves socially, emotionally, intellectually, and academically. And, I understand all that stuff's important first, but the approach I take is students first, curriculum academics second. Because my first 5 years of teaching, I was not Nebraska Teacher of the Year. I will be fully transparent with you. I actually thought about quitting my second year. I really did. I went home and I was Googling bachelor's degree, teaching, other jobs, how to make a cosmopolitan. I'm kidding. No, but seriously, I remember I went home and I said, I did not sign up for this. This is maybe not what I was supposed to do. And I remember my father telling me, Lee, I want you to name a job or profession that doesn't have its stresses. I want you to name a job or profession that doesn't have its pros and cons. I want you to name a job or profession that doesn't have its challenges. And I remember thinking, well, a job like that doesn't exist. And he goes, exactly. He goes, so don't let bad days, plural, affect what you want to do with your life and what you're passionate about. And it wasn't until about year 5 where I said, okay, the approach I'm taking, I'm focused on curriculum first, student seconds. That's not working. So let's switch it around. And once I did that, from year 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it started to get better and better and better. And I wish I could go back, and I always tell new teachers, I understand that we are held accountable with testing and data and all that stuff, and I'm not saying none of that's important, but really, really, that first 5 years, the most important asset in front of me, which were students, I was just too ignorant to see that. So I will be the first to admit that. So I really, really want to give my students a voice in my classroom. This is Menor. She's the one that roasted me. So she comes from a very traumatic background, okay? It's called generational trauma. So she fled Afghanistan because the Taliban blew up her school, and her parents wanted her to go to school. So she came to the United States to seek a better life. And she moved to Washington, D.C., but this is actually a letter she wrote to Mayor Gene Stothert about how to address inequities in Omaha. We actually looked at a World Herald article where it talked about how the city of Omaha could be more equitable to people in wheelchairs, specifically disabilities. And she wrote that to Mayor Gene Stothert, saying how our city could be more proactive and more equitable to people with wheelchairs. And so she did that. That's empowerment. That's giving your students voice. Whenever you can do that, you're going to get more engagement and more learning out of your kiddos. Absolutely. But that's, again, hearing their voices. Because I spoke to a cadre of Lincoln Public School, mainly high schoolers, a few weeks back. This equity cohort of high school teachers or high school students that want to be teachers someday from Lincoln Public Schools. And one of the students said, I wish teachers would be better listeners. I wish teachers would listen to us more. I wish they would take our feedback. I wish they would allow us to speak more during lessons. And I said, Absolutely. We absolutely should do that. Some of the best teachers are facilitators of learning. I remember my first 5 years, a colleague of mine said, "Lee, are you tired when you leave the classroom?" I go, "Yes." "Are you more tired than your students?" "Yes." He goes, "Then you're doing something wrong, okay? You're doing something wrong." Yes, teaching's exhausting. Yes, it's a lot of work, but the thing is your students should be working harder than you. So if you're a good teacher, you're an amazing facilitator. So this is actually an acrostic poem that these two students wrote on teacher. So go ahead and read that. They wrote that, not me. Pretty amazing. So these two students have only been in the country for 3 years. So if you go to YouTube and you type in story circles on equity, we had a very powerful conversation on what equity is in schools. So what they did is they wrote multilingual poetry, acrostic poetry on equity, and then we talked about equity in schools, what it looks like, how we can get better, examples of it and everything. But teaching empowerment as culturally open-minded human beings eager to reach all our diverse students. So what I really like about this poem is the culturally open-minded and reach all our diverse students. I will say this right now, regardless of whether you teach ESL, you're certified by the state and by your district as a full-time ESL teacher, you will have English language learners in your classrooms. Your future students that you are preparing to go out into districts will have ELLs. They will be in math. They will be in science. They will be in social studies. They will be in English language arts. They will be in tech and living. They will be in PE. They will be in human growth and development. So my job as State Teacher of the Year is to go around and show education majors and student teachers simple strategies to work with English language learners. Because again, they have needs that need to be met just like high ability learners, special education, all those areas. So I do this through culturally responsive teaching pedagogy, okay? CRT, it's not critical race theory, trust me, I've been accused of that, okay? I'm really sarcastic when I give my speeches too. No, it's not CRT, it's culturally responsive teaching. So it's simply the educational notion that we as educators must have an open mind when we go into classrooms, be tolerant when creating a classroom environment that is accepting of all student cultures, traditions, norms, and values. Because again, English language learners come from all over the world. When you walk into my classroom, you can have 26 countries and 33 languages spoken. Yes, you heard that correctly. Everywhere from Eastern Europe to Middle America. I've had students from Russia all the way to the other side to Mexico. Literally, I have a plethora of cultures and linguistic abilities in my classroom, but those are skills that need to be, those are areas that need to be addressed not just in sheltered ESL class, but in all curricular areas. So culturally responsive teaching practices help us as educators become lifelong learners, which makes us more effective teachers in the classroom with our families and the communities. And I will say this, lifelong learning is important. I tell education majors and just people in general, it's okay to say 3 words, I don't know. It's okay to say that. It makes you a human being. I say it all the time. People ask me questions all the time, like for example, how do we fix the teacher shortage? I don't know. I have some ideas, but I don't know. That's a very complex question, but it's okay to say that. But I will say, one of the best pieces of advice I can give as lifelong learning is some of the best teaching that you can do is out in the community with families and with community members. Because like I said, right now, some of our students, a lot of our students are struggling. COVID-19 really hit marginalized communities hard. I've had to do a lot of advocacy for my ELLs. Many of them are refugees that come over literally with only the clothes they have on and they have nothing else. And sometimes we need to be aware of that and we need to be fierce advocate for these kiddos outside of school, because if basic human needs cannot be met, learning cannot happen. And I'm going to go over that here just in a sec. So I'm going to show you what it looks like in the classroom, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like outside the classroom with families and communities. So number 1, please allow students to speak their native language, okay? Please do that. Language and culture are the same thing. That is not a separate phenomenon. Telling a student not to speak their native language is like telling someone not to be who they are. That's called cultural identity. It takes 7 to 10 years, according to linguistics, to learn, master, and apply language. It takes time. Any language takes time. So like, let me give you an example. I had siblings come from Honduras. They were refugees. They got here and they couldn't even say hello. So for the first couple months, I allowed them to speak Spanish because Spanish and English are very similar. It's called cognates in language theory. So literally a week ago, this student comes up to me and says, in the following words, Mr. Perez, can I please use the bathroom? Yes, you may. Thank you very much. Language takes time. It takes time. They will learn English. Trust me. They absolutely will. I've been doing this a long time. They absolutely will learn English. But until they start to build up that confidence and that empowerment and that inspiration from their teachers, allow them to speak their native language. Code switching, translanguaging, look it up. It's hard. It hurts your brain. I'm learning Spanish right now. When I was in Mexico City, we were in the market. My wife just left me. And I was in a very uncomfortable situation where I'm like, okay, oh man, now I'm speaking Spanish. Now people are laughing at me because I'm pronouncing things wrong. It takes time. So please be patient with our babies, our ELLs, because it takes time to learn that. Learn how to pronounce student names properly. Names have meaning. If you don't know how to pronounce them, keep trying until you do. Number 3, ask student questions about their cultures and take an interest in their lifestyles. Build personal connections with students, families, and communities. Again, students first, academics second. Again, I did it the other way the first 5 years. It doesn't work. I would never go back to that. Number 4, treat all students with respect and kindness during learning. I will say this. I remember a handful of teachers at North Platte High School. I don't remember every lesson they taught me, but I do remember how they treated me and how they made me feel. So imagine this piece of paper as a student. Where's your pencil at? Why are you always late for my classroom? Speak English. Well, now look what happened. But you come to find out, okay, they don't have a pencil because they're homeless. They don't have a ride to school because their family's struggling with bills. They don't speak English because they literally just arrived in this country because a terrorist organization just blew up their school. But as you can see, the damage has already been done. So it's not a question of asking questions, it's asking the right questions. So be nice to our kiddos. Always be nice. Because again, the teachers that made a difference in my life, I don't remember every lesson they taught me, but I do remember how they treated me. And trust me, kids will too. They absolutely will. I literally had a former student deliver pizza to me last week. And he didn't say, oh, Mr. Perez, I remember that amazing lesson about apartheid in South Africa. Or, you know, I remember you teaching me about Peter the Great and the Tsars of Russia. You know what he said to me? Congratulations on Nebraska Teacher of the Year. You were always nice to me and you always smiled on me. Thank you. You're welcome. If you ever need anything, let me know. Notice how didn't mention curriculum or pedagogy or research one time. It was human emotions. It's as simple as that. Sometimes we make it harder than it has to be. And then finally, create a classroom atmosphere where students feel cared for, valued, and loved. Learning can't happen if students don't feel that. It absolutely can't happen. I'm constantly asking student teachers are mainly who I talk to, but education majors, name a good teacher in your life. Now think of a bad teacher, and then their faces kind of go down. But they always say that the good teachers are the ones that made them feel like important people. They're the ones that they always were like talking at their locker. Oh, I can't wait to go to Mr. or Mrs. whatever's class. They're on fire. They're a great teacher. They're passionate about what they do. They love what they do. And then they're always like, man, oh man, now we have to go to this teacher's. Oh man, you know. It's all about passion, wanting to actually love what you do. And I get we have bad days. You know what I tell student teachers and education majors? Put on a face. Sometimes the best teaching is acting. Like right now, I'm tired. I'm really tired, okay? I teach full time. This is speech 37. I'm fatigued. I'm on fire, okay? Sometimes you just got to do that, all right? You really do. Plus, coffee. Thank God for that. All right, so outside of the classroom, what does it look like? Number 1 and 2, you can kind of combine them. Assist with community organizations that aid the collective community and collaborate with school administrators to pull resources that assist our marginalized communities with basic human needs. You can tell your candidates that they can prepare the best, most effective, most relevant, most rigorous lesson plans in the world with some of the top pedagogy in the world, from Bloom's taxonomy all the way to the bottom, all the way up. But if a kid is hungry, they don't care about that. They don't care. Let me give you an example. When COVID-19 broke out, literally it was that part at the beginning of Avengers Infinity War where Tony Stark literally said the earth is closed. Like, remember when everything closed and everything went on in chaos and everybody bought toilet paper and you couldn't find toilet paper and it was insane? Well, Omaha Public Schools went to remote learning the first 9 weeks. I had to meet my kids over a screen. Kids that came here that were experiencing culture shock and a language barrier, and I'm no technology expert. First time in my teaching career I was actually nervous. I remember pacing around my room thinking, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I just remember I have to be the captain of the ship and I have to figure this out, and we did. But I remember during remote learning, I always saw a student in a different location. They were in a hotel, they were in another hotel, they were in a parking lot, they were in some random house or apartment. Well, I did some investigating. The student was homeless for a month. And they still would log in and come to class. And then I found out they didn't eat, they weren't eating for like a week or two, just looked really tired, really weak, really frail. So I pulled some money of my own, got the student a gift card. I went to my school, which is amazing. We were able to get this student all the resources they need: a place to live, food assistance, rent and utilities assistance. But the minute that happened, the student's academic thrived. But that student was in survival mode. He didn't care about nouns or pronouns. They didn't care about spelling or grammar or what a thesis is. They're hungry. That's a human emotion. Think about it. How many of you have ever been hungry? Or imagine leaving here and not knowing you have a stable place to go. Do you really think you're going to be thinking about some type of like classroom instruction? No, you're thinking survival. So the minute we were able to fix that, students learning thrived a lot. But again, you have to be advocates for these kiddos. You have to understand that kids do not have some of the things that we take for granted. And I'm going to teach you what that looks like later. 3, attend events, holidays, celebrations, and festivals when students invite you. And they will. And sometimes that's the best PD you can go to. It's free, and they feed you a lot. And it's awesome. You learn things about kids and families and culture you never even knew. Oh my gosh, I go to events all the time. And I'm like, man, I've been to like 100 of these, and every time I go, I learn something different. Number 4, educate yourself on implicit bias and use that to be a more productive educator for diverse student populations. We all have it. I have bias. We all do. We're human beings. But learning how to understand what bias is and how to get better is how we move forward, okay? But we all have it, and it's okay to admit. And 5, attend professional developments in the areas of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And again, sometimes this is your DEI, professional development, going to events. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, this is a Korean birthday party. This student is from Thailand. So when you enter a Korean household, I will say this. How many of you have a bubble? You don't like people getting close to you. It's okay. Okay, well, in that culture, that doesn't exist. They get close to you. It's not out of disrespect. It is a cultural norm. You have to understand that around the world, what we considered normal is abnormal and vice versa. So when you walk in, you have to take off your shoes. They will serve you food, a lot of food. Like even before you get done taking your last 10 bites, you'll have like 10 plates lined up for you, trust me. Literally fast before you go, because they will feed you until you can't eat anymore, okay? You have to sit on the floor. A lot of it you have to eat with your hands, okay? If they ever serve you this spice, little, not a spoonful, trust me, you will pay for it later. I found out the hard way. But yeah, but they tell stories. A lot of cultures tell stories. They sit around dinner and they just tell stories. Not all these stories are Disney stories. They're not happy stories. So let me give you an example of privilege. So this young lady lived in a refugee camp for 10 years. So the Korean population are put into refugee camps in Thailand. These camps are surrounded by barbed wire fence, and they are surrounded by the military of Thailand, men with guns, militarized equipment, okay, very dangerous. So I need a volunteer. You don't have to come up here, just raise your hand. Who would like, go ahead. Okay, what's your name?
Jason.
Jason, nice to meet you. Go Bulldogs, right? So Jason's from North Platte. So, So Jason, I'm being serious, and I'm not being sarcastic, okay? So, did you have a glass of water this morning?
Yes.
Okay, can you meticulously explain from start to beginning how you got your water? Seriously.
I had a bottle of water in my fridge, and I opened the cap and drank it.
Okay, that's it.
Yes, that's it.
At any time, did you feel like your life was in danger?
No.
Did you ever feel like, was it hard work? Was it backbreaking this labor to get your water?
No.
Okay, so if you wanted to get water in a Thai refugee camp, this is what you had to do. First of all, they only sent the women, okay? So they would pick up, so the military would only allow the women to do this, okay, because these are men with guns. So the women would have to pick up these very heavy buckets, and they would have to carry them to a well. Depending on the mood of the Thai military, men with guns, it could be 3 of them, 10 of them, 5 of them, whatever, they could either allow the young ladies to get water, or they could say no. Well, as you know, water is a basic human need. Oftentimes, the military might say, well, if I give you water, what are you going to give us? And unfortunately, you probably already know what I mean by that. Okay? Now, if they did allow these young ladies to get the water, they would have to do this, and they would have to put water in buckets, and they would have to carry it, and they'd have to make multiple trips, which is, again, some kind of backbreaking labor. Then they would have to boil the water, because this isn't cleaner filtered water, wait for it to cool down, and then drink. She had to do that for 10 years. And again, there were times the Thai military would not allow them to have waters for days, sometimes weeks. Imagine that. In these refugee camps, specifically in the springtime and the summer, it gets hot. So now she is a freshman at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and she's studying to be a banker and an accountant. So literally from a refugee camp to wanting to live the American dream and open up her own small business in Omaha, Nebraska. But again, that's privilege. That's something we take for granted every day, with bottled water, with getting water, with even showering. Okay, I will say this, you can study poverty, you can write a doctoral dissertation on that, you can defend it with all the research, but until you've actually lived in poverty and you understand it, and I had that opportunity this summer outside of Mexico City, where if it didn't rain, we didn't shower, you don't understand it. So please, I challenge all of you to travel into countries, third world countries specifically, and live that lifestyle for a little bit. It'll teach you the perspective that you need to understand where a lot of our kids come from. This is a quinceañera. Who knows what a quinceañera is? These things are awesome. How many of you have ever been to a quinceañera? Yes, they're like a small wedding. My wife's pregnant with a daughter. I'm already stressing out. I'm like, oh my God, honey, we got to get the cake. She's not born yet. I don't care. No, but these things are awesome. And I've noticed that even different parts of Mexico regionally, like if a student's from Chihuahua or Culiacan, Sinaloa, or Mexico City, even different regions of Mexico celebrate quinceañeras differently. But the point is, they're just these elaborate celebrations. And you learn so much about your students and your families. And you learn things about your kiddos that sometimes they won't tell you in a classroom. Outside in the community at things like that, oftentimes they let their guard down and they start to tell you things they would never tell you. So I always encourage you to be involved in the community as much as possible. It does transfer back into the classroom. So the results of culturally responsive teaching. Personal connections. So this is me to the left with a former student of mine. Her name's Lupita. She was a student of mine my second year at Mars Middle School. That is me. 4 pina coladas down on the beach at Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Best pina coladas in town. All right, so yeah, she attended my wedding. 12 years after she was my student, she attended my wedding. Now, first in her family to graduate from college, business administration from the University of Nebraska in Omaha. How was she able to do that? Because I was able to empathize with her and say, hey, Lupita, I was the first in my family. Because she would always say, I don't think I can go to college. I can't afford it. You don't know what financial aid is? You don't know what scholarships are? What's that? I was able to teach her that. I was able to tell her that. I was able to empower her with all of that. And now she's done it. And now I'm trying to get her to do her master's. I say, you get your master's just like me. You'll be the first in your family to get your master's. She's probably going to do it. But that just shows the power of a good teacher. even years after she wasn't my student, now she's doing amazing things with her life. Incredible things. I've never been more proud of a student. And she was actually at our baby shower on Saturday, and she got really emotional because I said, I talk about you all the time, and she was just like, I can't like put in words like what you've done for me. And I go, you don't have to say thank you. Just keep doing you. Just keep doing you. That's all I want you to do. Okay? This is a recent one. This one made me proud. So go ahead and read that. CMS is College of St. Mary's. So I didn't have this student for 8 years, and she reaches out to me just out of the blue and says, I need a letter of recommendation, and I wrote her one, and she got in. Full paid scholarship to College of St. Mary's to be a nurse. It's a very expensive school. So it's nice to be able to use not just the relationship I've built with my former students to help them with their dreams, but Nebraska Teacher of the Year to help kids get what they want. And I remember she was just, that's just a part of the email. She was like, you have no idea how much this means. She goes, you know my family situation. I couldn't pay for it. And now because of you, I get a full paid scholarship for 4 years. And it just, things like that that's what I'm in it for. And that's what you should teach all your education majors to be in it for. Because again, it is literally an honor to be able to do things like that, because this is what's not in a pacing guide. This is what's not in curriculum, is being able to do amazing things like this. So there are academic results with this too. So culturally responsive teaching, we're promising academically. So this was the ESL teacher before me. These are my scores. The results speak for themselves. To date, I have a 44% exit rate in my program. People will walk into my room, where are all your kids? They're graduating the program. They're learning. But notice how I talked about students first, and then I did the academics. So people say, well, how do you know it works? Well, there's proof in the data. Look at it. Look at that. My principal came to me, he goes, holy smokes, how did you do that? This was my first year teaching ESL officially. Culturally responsive teaching. What is that? Let me train your staff. So he let me do it, and I'm training him. I train them on exactly what I'm training you all to do. So yes, there is academic achievement within this. There absolutely is, and it's right there. So English language learners, we call them ELs. So I'm an ESL teacher. So let me give you some facts on our English language learners here in Nebraska. They make up 7% of our student population here. That number seems small, but that's literally thousands of kids from Omaha to Scottsbluff that need social, emotional, linguistic, and academic needs met every day. So with war, famine, terrorism, drought, political instability, and destabilization, Nebraska has seen an increase of immigrant, migrant, and specifically refugee resettlements. We're getting a lot from Afghanistan. With the war in Russia and Ukraine, the U.S. Department of State has said that they will start relocating 100,000 Ukrainian refugees in the United States. They will be coming here. Okay? Poland can't keep them all. So agencies are starting to work with our government to resettle Ukrainian refugees here. That number will grow. They will be ELLs in all of our classrooms, and they will need needs and services that will have to be met on a daily basis. So Nebraska teachers need more training on awareness on culturally responsive and ELL teaching strategies and practices. And I'm going to prove it to you. I need a volunteer to come up here for this one. Who is my brave soul? Come on up. Give her a round of applause, everybody. Hi, what is your name?
Rosalie.
Nice to meet you. So stand right over here. All right, so I just need you to read these next two slides out to the fabulous faculty here at UNK. Do you think you can do that?
I think I can.
Okay. Go ahead and read that one. Well, we're waiting. All you have to do is read it. I didn't say it would be in English.
Don't think I can do that.
Thank you. All right, so there's lots of, when I do this, there's lots of people that think they have to try to read it. So what they'll do is sometimes they'll get like fraternity and sorority people, and they'll be like, well, that's a pie. Yeah, that's called decoding. I want you to read it, though. So do you know what language that is?
It looks like Greek, but I can't.
It's not Greek. Anybody know? It is Russian. That is a language one of my ELLs speaks, is Russian. Okay? All right, we're going to go to the bonus round. You ready? Here we go. How about that one?
Don't know.
Do you know what language? It is Arabic. Very good. All right, give her a round of applause, please. Thank you very much.
No problem.
All right. All right, why did I do that? Now you know what it's like to be a language learner. Now you get it. So what drives me insane, and if I had hair, I'd pull it out, but I don't. Sometimes teachers, they get ELLs, and they're like, oh, well, it must be a special education issue. No, it's not. Not all the time. Sometimes they can be dual-coded. Oh, well, it must be speech-language pathology. That's an accent from Eastern Europe, so it's not. Well, why can't they do the work? And then I do that exercise, and they're like, oh, yeah. Oh, because we have to, like, understand and experience something to get it. Now you get it. So how many of you have ever been to a different country? You know what that's like. You know what that's like. So I always tell teachers, imagine coming to a different country and everything looks like that. Everything, from the minute you arrive in the airport, from when you go through customs, to everywhere you go, everything looks like that. How many years does it take to learn, master, and apply language, according to the linguistics? 7 to 10 years. There's a guy named Krashen. He is the guru of language theory. He basically has this notion called universal language theory. He says over time, with the appropriate strategies, all of us can learn language. But it takes time. So with the appropriate strategies, eventually we could all read that. We could all speak that. We could all understand that. But again, now you get it. So it's like, be patient with our kids, because when they get here, that's what it looks like. But they don't know how to read that yet. And the yet is the important word. They will. Give them time. You guys want to know what that is? That's the opening crawl to Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. I'm a Star Wars fan. You know, at the beginning, yeah, that's that. But you didn't know that because you can't read it. I was going to do Baby Shark, but I hate that song. All right. All right, so how do we support our ELLs now that I've taught you language perspective? It's something as simple as providing language and sentence frames during assignments and activities. I'm going to show you what that is. That is huge with an ELL. Incorporate culturally responsive teaching practices in your instruction and classroom management. Native language acquisition. The research says, according to linguistics, your native language can support your acquisition of a second language. It's called L1 supporting L2. That's why it's important to embrace bilingualism and multilingualism. Number 3, allow students to access bilingual and multilingual resources that can help with their acquisition of a second language. We have this app on our devices with Omaha Public Schools called Duolingo. How many of you have ever heard of it? Kids love it, and they're using it a lot. Phones, I know that they are one of those things that drive us nuts, but they're not going away. Kids use translator apps all the time, and they help. And then number 4 is when English language learners get to an area of proficiency and advancement with their English, please challenge them. Please challenge them. Don't treat them like they can't do the work. Because remember, with Minor, she speaks 8 languages. So if I was to say, would you consider her to be a very intelligent young lady or unintelligent? What would you say? Well, she's intelligent because she's able to absorb language. She's able to code switch all the time. That's not easy to do in 8 languages. That's a sign of intelligence, not a lack of it. So once their English is to an area of proficiency, challenge them. They can do the work. They can do the work. Okay, so how many of you have ever seen the analogy of the culture iceberg? Raise your hand. Okay, so we've all seen this. So this can, remember, culture can go into the classroom. It does. It absolutely does. So surface culture is what we see every day. not just in the classroom, but in everyday life. But deep culture sometimes is what gets us into trouble. And it can get us into trouble in the classroom. So I'm going to show you a couple examples. Because you have to understand, when ELLs come over, they're faced with two fire hoses coming at them. Culture shock and a language barrier, okay? So let me show you 3 examples. So culture and classroom management and engagement. So imagine one of your future candidates walks into their classroom and a student does this gesture, crosses their arms and looks down. While you're speaking to them, what will your first reaction be when you observe this behavior? So here's an example of a sentence frame. So you'd give this to an ELL, and they would write it or speak it, and they would just fill it in. It's very helpful. That's what a sentence frame or a language frame. It's also good for all kids. So someone raise their hand and read that and then fill in the frame. So if I observe this in my future classroom, my first reaction would be, what would you think? It can be a negative response, by the way. That's fine. I'm not looking for a specific answer. Well, I am, but you can just tell me what you think. What do you think?
Respect.
Respect? Okay. How many of you, what do you mean by that? What do you mean respect? Are they being disrespectful or respectful?
It could actually be a deference to the person in front and just having that response of letting the other person.
So how many of you, when you grew up, you were taught to look adults and teachers in the eye? Go ahead. Yeah, that's an American notion, right? What if I told you in other countries they teach their students the exact opposite? So what if I told you that when this student's from Thailand, specifically Southeast Asia, I had my first Japanese EL a few years ago, and the mother explained, when we do this in our culture, that's being respectful to you. And I said, oh, wow. And so I had to go around and tell all the teachers that. But yeah, we are taught from childhood, look us in the eye. If they're not looking you in the eye, what is that? They're not listening, they're not paying attention, right? Well, in collectivist cultures like Japan and Thailand, they are taught the opposite. So when you get a kid from Japan or Southeast Asia like Thailand or Vietnam, they will do that. They will absolutely do that. But they are taught that, just like we are taught to look adults in the eye. They are taught that. Now, as they start to observe their peers and their classmates, they slowly start to assimilate and they start to ask questions. But when you get a student like that, they will do that. But you have to understand, they are taught to do that, okay? So I remember one time, a teacher at an anonymous school was kind of laying into a kid. And I observed this, and I pulled the teacher aside, and I said, listen, we're going to do role play, okay? You're Chris Rock, I'm Will Smith. I'm kidding. No, I explained to him what I explained to you, and he was just like, well, I didn't know that. And I said, now you do. What are you going to do about it? So understand that. Cultural norms are different around the world, okay? All right? Here's another example. You're teaching your lesson when you notice this happening. Happens all the time. I used to do that. For a different reason, though. What is the first thing you think of? So if I saw this in my classroom, I would think what? Go ahead and shout it out. Raise your hand. Go ahead.
I will tell you what I did as a first-year teacher. I thought they were just being tired, lazy.
Yes.
But come to find out, that student was homeless.
That's right. But you thought initially, oh, they're not listening to me, they're disengaged, they don't care, right? Well, culturally, yeah, it could be homeless, but culturally, the education institutions, specifically school systems around the world, are different. So this student's from Honduras. So he starts school in his country at 9:30. We start school at 7:15. Oh. In Afghanistan, they start school at 11. Yes. Vietnam, they start school at 10. They also get out sooner. So let me ask you a question. If I was to ask all of you, you're going to lose 2 to 4 hours of sleep a night. How many of you would not like that? Well, including me. Exactly. Seriously. They come here, and we expect kids to be at school by like 3 a.m. sometimes. We expect them to be there super early. We also go longer. So for example, in Vietnam, they go from 10 to 1. Honduras, they go from 9:30 to noon. They let them out earlier. I remember one time a kid came up to me, he said, it was around lunchtime, he goes, are we getting ready to leave? I go, not that I know of. Well, in our school system, we're getting ready to leave. I go, well, you're my vote for superintendent. Yeah, they're confused by that. Because we expect them to be up super early, and then we expect them to stay. Some schools around the world, they ask them to be there 4 hours, 5 hours. We're expecting them to be there 8. That takes a toll on a kid. And it's different, okay? Here's another. So, a student from a different country is constantly late for your class. Why do you think that student's always late? So, what do you think? Essence of time. What do you think? Go ahead, you can shout out any answers you think. What do you think? They're always late. Why?
Some cultures are not real strict about time. They just say,
Bingo.
8 o'clock, we'll be there, give or take.
Yes, in collectivist cultures, the very essence of time is not a big deal. And then they come to America, and what do they hear? Come on, you got to be on time. You're going to be late. Hurry up. You're going to get a pink slip. By the way, they're not losing their job, a pink slip, right? So hurry up. You're going to be late. Hurry up. I mean, seriously, in Omaha, people are driving. Oh, get out of the way. Use your turn signal. Get out of the way. And then they see that, and they're confused. Well, then you go to other countries. Like when I was in Mexico City, I noticed 2 things. Everybody drives really close to each other. But I noticed that nobody was in a hurry. In 2 weeks, I was there for a month, but I was on a resort for another week. But in 2 weeks, I didn't see one accident. Why? Nobody was in a hurry. Everybody was just laissez-faire and went on their time. I never saw people running around. Oh my God, in Omaha, I'll see 30 accidents in 10 minutes. We literally have a radio station that does an accident report. Why? Because there's so many accidents. Why? Because everybody's in a hurry. So then when kids get here, they see that, they are ultra confused by that. Because in collectivist cultures, it's not unusual or even bad sometimes to be late 30 minutes to an hour. It's not. Students will be late all the time. And they are super confused by Americans. One time, so I had a student from Vietnam, my first year above it. She was late 45 minutes every day. 45 minutes. And so, you know, I've always trained you have to be on time. So I kind of thought it was abnormal. And then I started to ask her questions, and I was like, oh. And she looks at me and she goes, why are Americans so obsessed with time? Oh, no, we're Americans. We're obsessed with a lot of weird things. I go, wait till you hear a TikTok. No, don't do that. No, but seriously, yeah, they are so confused by that. And it takes them a while to adjust to that. It takes them a while to go from to a culture where everything is so laissez-faire about just the essence of time to where everybody's in a hurry. They don't get that. And it takes them a while to understand that. Now, she's been here 2 years. Now she gets it. She's on time all the time. But again, it takes time. So again, those are just 3 examples of deep culture and how that impacts classroom management and instruction. So here's my contact information. This is my school email. This is my personal email. Please follow me at Twitter at LanguagePerez. This is the QR code to my website. And if you go there right now, in the next 10 minutes, if you sign up, I'm kidding. That's pretty good, huh? All right. But yes, that's my contact information. Are there any questions? Yes.
What do you do with, when it comes to language? Because I had this when I was in the public schools. Because I was a special ed teacher. You would have gen ed administrators pushing ELL students out because they were not making progress in 3 years. How do I want to say this nicely?
You can say it unnicely if you want to.
But when you're a new teacher, how do you say that, to people, they're not ready, you're not
7 to 10 years. 7 to 10 years. Yes. And sometimes we expect kids to make that type of growth in 3 years. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not.
I mean, do you have any tips for, teachers? Because new teachers to say they're not ready yet.
My only tip would be, and I know what you're talking about, is show them the research on language acquisition. Again, these are people that literally study languages their whole lives. They know what they're talking about. So that would be, I know exactly what you mean because I have had the same conversation with lots of people, and I literally say what you're asking in a way can't be done because, again, crashing, it takes time. I mean, even me learning Spanish, I get it. It takes, if you were to give me a state standardized assessment in Spanish, I can tell you right now I'd bomb it. I would not do very good because it takes time. What I will say is progress is, sort of my MAP scores for reading. 73% of my kiddos made growth. It was awesome. But again, they may not be making growth to where the state wants them to be, but I tell a kid, even if you grow 5, 10 points, you're still making growth. And those are the little linguistic victories that you need to celebrate. I know, trust me, I know the frustration, I understand that, but again, it takes time. It takes time. Any other questions? All right, last thing, just a real awesome picture. So please reach out if you need anything. Thank you. You're all amazing.
Thank you so much for coming and making time on a Friday afternoon. And for some people, this is a very special Friday. So I can't thank you enough, colleagues and scholars, to be here. I would be remiss if I didn't thank two scholars in particular. Claire Nelson, who is the student assistant in our office and also a family science scholar. So thank you very much, Claire. And always Mr. Jason Baker, who is a graduate from family science and now a graduate student here at UNK. So thank you, Mr. Baker, always for supporting me. Thank you, Dr. Diaz, for your partnership. And again, I thank you so much. And Mr. Perez,
Yes,
thank you for making the trip to Omaha. We have a couple of things for you that we would like to give you.
Yes, this is just some UNK swag,
Oh, yeah.
Represent.
but this is a gift we want to you to enjoy. Do you want to open that up?
Oh, wow.
This is UNK, right?
UNK, yes.
So what it says is College of Education, Lee Perez, 2022 Nebraska Teacher of the Year. Thank you for your dedication to education. University of Nebraska at Kearney, April 15th, 2022.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
Do you have time for questions afterwards?
Yeah, I do, absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
afterwards, Mr. Perez has agreed to stay. Dr. Broken, you can ask your question afterwards, right? Yep. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bisek, for being here and supporting us.